Top 20 Best Fights in Court. The courtroom can be as wild as a wrestling ring sometimes, just like what happened with Jeremy Christian. After brutally murdering 2 people on a train during a racially motivated attack in Portland, Oregon, Jeremy Christian couldn't face the reality of the terror that he had done. Christian was up against a key witness in the case, and she did not go easy on him whatsoever. To say he deserved it would be an understatement, but the witness verbally destroyed Christian, ended up having an outburst, threatening to kill the witness, and he had to be taken outside. Probably not wise to do that when you're facing a life sentence. While Christian was acting maniacally, Penelope Soto was just going through her trial like a Barbie doll. After serious drug charges, Penelope Soto was a cartoonish character during her trial, laughing, smiling, twirling her hair, and barely answering the judge's questions. You can tell the judge was amused by her carefree attitude until he had to deliver his justice. Penelope must have confused the judge for a friend, as she just walks off with a smile. But when he had to bring her back for contempt, it all goes very different.
Come back, ma'am. Come back. Come back. Give me the paper again. Count one would be 10,000.
Are you serious?
I am serious. Adios.
On the total opposite end of the spectrum is a rugby player with a lot of anger issues. Jesse Rose, the former rugby player, made headlines when he had a violent outburst in a bar. After what appeared to be the security asking him and his friend to leave, Rose gets violent and smashes his glass into the security guard's head. You think that's bad enough? Wait till you see what he did in court. While on trial, his lawyer tried to argue for leniency, as apparently Rose was going straight. But the judge chose not to put down the law and gave Rose 14 months in prison. Rose then decided to contradict what his lawyer was trying to prove and went feral in court, kicking down the stall door and throwing chairs. Even his girlfriend's presence couldn't calm him down. He was restrained by security. Just like Rose, Michael Ray couldn't keep his cool when faced with his sentence. With charges of terroristic threatening and assault, Michael Ray was attending his bond hearing, and he must have expected the judge to go light on him, because he couldn't believe her decision. After setting his bond at $25,000, Ray lets out a chuckle, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. The judge thought doubling his bond would be enough at first, but Ray kept on going, threatening to see the judge outside and flipping her off. This was enough for the judge to go into a frenzy, giving him 100 days in contempt, but even that was not enough. When he kept going, the judge raised his charges to 10 charges, with an extra terroristic charge. To think he could have just paid his due and walked out.
Think that's funny?
I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, and I think...
All right, so bond is $50,000. No bail credit. It's lucky I didn't hold him in contempt. Bring him in. I'm holding him in contempt. Adding charges.
While Ray wasn't the smartest assault convict in the shed, he was outshined by Tobias Roman. If there was ever a stereotypical criminal look, it'd be Tobias Roman. Roman was on trial for a whole host of charges, including robbery, terroristic threats, stalking, and exhibiting a deadly weapon. It seems like nothing could faze this hardened criminal, though, except referring to him by any other name than Giggles.
Tobias, my first name, that's it. Giggles or Tobias, that's it.
Yeah, that's right. Not a rough, scary name fitting of his stature, but something that sounds like a henchman for the Joker. When faced with his charges, however, Roman would giggle no more, as he completely flipped the switch, threatening to kill the judge and had to be escorted out. Roman isn't the only one who had a somewhat amusing court appearance, because he's joined by the infamous double Jeopardy criminal. This defendant didn't continue the trend of wholesome cases on court in Providence, because he really didn't like Judge Frank Caprio's ruling of 10 days in court. Somehow, the defendant thinks this is enough to sue a judge, but when the judge brings him back, he goes on an absolute rant against the judge.
I'll sue you now! Double jeopardy! I take that as a threat. Double jeopardy!
It's unclear who taught him the law, but it seemed like he knew something about double jeopardy, and decided to apply it to this case over and over and over and over again. The rant got so hilarious that even the security were laughing. This kind of boldness in court isn't limited to men only, however. This Karen's outburst would extend beyond stores and to the court when she kept interrupting the judge and got threatened with contempt, to which she didn't care. When the judge was handing her a sentence, though, she went from Karen to killer and outright tried to attack the judge. The dumbfounded judge's reaction says it all.
You will serve 10 days for contempt of court. Go now.
While this judge just stood by and watched, other judges get physical, like Judge John Murphy. Judge Murphy was about to have a WrestleMania moment with prosecutor Andrew Weinstock, who wanted a case to go to trial, but Judge Murphy didn't share his opinion. The two soon got into a verbal argument, with Murphy expressing his feelings towards the prosecutor. Saying it escalated quickly would be an understatement, because when the judge wanted to turn it into a real fight, Andrew Weinstock didn't back down, and they literally took it outside like a barb.
If you want to fight, let's go out back and I'll just beat your ass.
The fight could be heard from inside the courtroom as attendees were anxious to see the result, but not long after, Judge Murphy entered back victorious. Seems like justice was served that day, just in the form of a knuckle sandwich. The age-old battle between prosecutor and judge wasn't just limited to John Murphy and Weinstock, because it happened in more than one case. In this hearing, the prosecutor was furious over the judge knowing another prosecutor wouldn't be attending, but seemingly acted in an unprofessional way. The judge seemed very condescending, and the prosecutor just would not have it, ultimately letting go of the case altogether, and literally walking out.
Okay, okay, your objection's noted.
We had a phone status conference 2 weeks ago in which Ms. Schiffel...
Your objection is noted. Okay?
I'm not going to participate in this proceeding without the elected county prosecutor. I think this is a sham that you're going forward. When the court was...
You're going to sit here. You're going to sit here.
You were told about her unavailability and specifically told her on the phone not to cancel that appointment, that it wouldn't be a problem.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you want to be here for the decision, that's your business.
Well, Your Honor, I think this is outrageous. You're going forward without the prosecutor.
Speaking of judges going feral, none compared to Judge William Watkins.
And you disgusting piece of...
Judge William Watkins seemed to have a personal vendetta against this pastor in a divorce case. The wife wanted him to sign a document for the sale of his house, which he refused, but his house wasn't the problem here. Judge William Watkins was. In an article released by the press, Judge Watkins' home was pictured and published. Who does he blame? The man in front of him, leading him to go on a rant against the defendant.
If you say one word out of turn, you're going to jail. You understand me?
My wife is disabled. She's there alone. And you disgusting piece of... You put up our picture of my house. Because of you, my wife is there alone. My house has been vandalized 4 times. You realize that, of course, because I'm sure you're probably in on it laughing about it. I swear to you.
The defendant sat quietly and let Watkins go on, probably predicting the future in which Judge Watkins got suspended for his actions. Other judges, however, just do their jobs to the best degree, such as in the case of Delroy Greenman. Delroy Greenman faced the very definition of bad luck, but also a lesson in what goes around comes around. When on trial for petty theft charges, his other dirty laundry came out when it was revealed he had other out-of-state charges. This prompted the judge to put justice first and upgrade his petty theft to a felony. Thinking he was getting off easy, Greenman erupted in court and had to be restrained.
What?
Excuse me?
My name is Mr. Greenman.
I'm the federal witness of the United States federal government. I demand some respect, you. Let's get a jail for however long y'all did and figure out what you're doing.
Alright, he can be removed once y'all get him out.
Now.
Word of advice, a federal witness doesn't have as much power as you think. At least Greenman didn't reach the level of flipping a table, like Jeremy Sher did. Jeremy Sher got a lesson in having big ambitions when he was in court for first-degree home invasion, car theft, theft from a building, identity theft, and possession of a controlled substance. You'd think someone with a rap sheet this long would just put his trust in his lawyer and hope for the best. But Jeremy really didn't want his lawyer. Thinking his expertise in crime would somehow make him fit for defending himself, he kept asking for it, but the judge obviously refused. Jeremy didn't realize that the judge wanted what was best for him, because there's no scenario where a criminal defending himself will ever end well. He couldn't come to that conclusion, however, and instead decided to make a scene. Speaking of judges looking out for the defendants, some took it a bit too far, like Judge John Wool. When this 16-year-old also wanted to defend himself during his juvenile probation in court, Judge John Wool really didn't think it was a good idea. His mother tried to explain why their current lawyer wasn't suitable.
I would like to fight for myself and not have an attorney.
Oh, that's not a smart play.
But the judge refused to let a kid go at this alone. While his intentions may have been honorable, he came off a bit harsh, to say the least.
I'm doing my job, sir. My job requires that I protect your constitutional rights. You as an American citizen. That's my charge. And if you're too stupid to know that what I'm trying to do is protect you, then let me spell it out for you. I am trying to protect you, your rights, and your freedoms.
While you might have felt bad for the kid, someone who did deserve a harsher judge was Alan McCarthy. Alan McCarthy once had a genius idea, calling a courtroom to outright threaten a judge like it was his internet provider's customer support. He wanted the judge to come out, but they brought him in, with enough charges to make him regret the day he'd ever bought a phone. He wouldn't give, though, and made even worse decisions during his hearings, shouting, arguing, and using racial slurs. At one point, you have to wonder what goes through some of these criminals' heads.
Suck my d***! No, I'm not standing. Not resisting. I'm not resisting. I'm just not stand up. I'm not standing. I don't have to stand.
But while a judge can take some taunting and deal with it, it's worse when it's a victim's family. But Shondell Jackson proved his true heartlessness after he murdered Nathan Potter and seemed to have no guilt about it. In court, Potter's family was breaking down, but Shondell Jackson's family was countering them, leading to a serious case of a feud. On his part, Jackson decided to make things worse when he kept looking back and even smirking at the victim's family, causing him to get restrained. But then it only got wilder. At least Jackson was completely silent, unlike Ebony Burks, whose mouth got her in even bigger trouble. Ebony Burks was on trial for a domestic violence case, but when Burks got a restraining order disallowing her to stay with Cedric McCrary, whom she was living with, as well as her grandfather, she realized she was suddenly homeless. This sent her into a frenzy of arguing with the judge, whose arsenal of comebacks included 30 days of contempt, over and over and over again.
So you gonna tell me I can't go home?
I'm telling you, you can't go home. If you live with...
Whoa, I'm talking. I don't need you to say nothing.
If you live with Mr. McCrae, you cannot return to that residence.
Oh, but how you just gonna tell me I can't go home?
What?
How you gonna tell me I can't go to my home?
That's another 30 days. That's 60 days.
So what?
90 days.
So?
120 days.
Okay, and?
180 days.
Oh!
Thing. We'll talk in 6 months when you're ready to come back for your case.
At least Burks guaranteed a place to stay for the next 300 days. When it comes to disrespect in court, none could compete with Michael Gaines. Gaines was in court for spitting on 2 deputies, but he was convinced it was all lies and that there was a greater corruption at hand. What started as him defending himself led to him insulting both the judge and a witness, going off with slurs and capping it off with a literal death wish.
I'm
ready to go. I was ready to go. You punk.
I'm talking.
You.
Take out of the courtroom.
He's a maggot. You.
Yeah, you're a tough guy.
He's a maggot, punk. You should have died when you was a baby.
Yeah.
Maggot.
Anytime, Mr. Gaines.
Shut up, punk.
You'd be surprised how much spitting goes on in these court cases, and Bass Webb took it to extremes. Webb was on trial for a murderous attempt to run over 2 prison officers when he was leaving prison, somehow not thinking that this would put him right back in. While it did, the judge wanted none of it, recusing herself for knowing one of the 2 victims, and, as they say, justice can't get personal. Webb didn't seem to care when he suddenly spit on the judge. The judge's reaction spelled out Webb's doom when she brought him back, especially to see her wipe the spit away. This one action earned him a totally new case and trial. It's a safe bet that he won't be coming out of that prison again for the foreseeable future. In terms of arguing, all these pale in comparison to Daryl Brooks. Daryl Brooks is notorious for the most infuriating hearings, even after his horrific attack on the Waukesha parade that killed 6 people. The judge's worst mistake, however, was letting him defend himself in his case, because that led to a series of interruptions and arguing that proved the judge had nerves of steel.
I am not the custodian. Bring it up with the clerk of court.
How
I'm
can
not
I bring
addressing
it up
it.
with the clerk of court? How am I supposed to do that?
I told you yesterday, as a courtesy, that was provided to you, so that you would frankly not complain that you didn't get it as quickly as possible.
After tolerating Brooks for so long, he was rightfully removed from the courtroom so that everyone's headache could heal for a bit. Not all judges have nerves of steel like this, though, because in the case of Kamiya Gomez, the judge let his emotions get the better of him. Gomez was on trial for the murder of her boyfriend, and almost nobody, including audiences online, believed she was innocent, despite her constant attempts to claim it. Gomez garnered nobody's sympathy, especially with her provocative behavior in court, and when the judge had enough, though, he took his feelings toward her a bit too far.
I agree with the family. I hope you die in prison.